this is a matchup that probably favors Cucanato. I mean, if he gets a big dummy in play, it's over.
Well, Rug Delver is traditionally pretty solid against combo decks in general. You know, you have a clock and you have some soft permission. Reanimator is fairly robust against that kind of stuff because it doesn't require that much mana to actually do his thing, as opposed to Show and Tell, which requires, you know, a 3-mana spell or a 4-mana spell to actually go off. So Rug traditionally favored here, but Reanimator's got some solid game. A lot of it's going to come down to, in my opinion, how much sideboard hate does Greg have specifically for the graveyard.
Both these players sitting in 6-0, so this is basically a win and in for top 8, essentially here. Cucanato's threats to reanimate for Gristlebrand. You spoke about Tidespout Tyrant. He's got that. He's also got Niona, Shield of Remeria, and Elesh Norn, Grand Cenobite, and then one that we don't actually see very often. I'm actually interested in its inclusion, a Grave Titan.
I asked Robert about this a little bit. Someone posted to me about Twitter about it, in fact, in Detroit. A lot of it's, you know, you can play kind of a normal grindy game. It's better in some spots against a swath of larger creatures, and it's also a good reanimation target against Liliana in some spots as well because it comes naturally with some Edict Protection.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's not a primary. It's not really a primary reanimator target, I think, in any particular matchup. Usually you just want to go Gristlebrand, but there's particular spots and board states where it's nice to have a Grave Titan. Now,
we've seen some players, I know Reed Duke, Owen Turton, Huey Jensen, they all played Reanimator at the Season 1 Invitational in Charlotte. They were playing a Sphinx of the Steel Wind. When I played Reanimator in Washington, D.C., I was actually starting an Inkwell Leviathan as a threat that could actually beat Death and Taxes since you can't Caracas it or kill it with the swords, or block it effectively because of trample.
And I think that Grave Titan might be good in that matchup as well for kind of the same reasons. But I really, what I like about covering Legacy tournaments more than anything is watching the faithful servants, the people who play the same list, you know, the Greg Smiths and the Robert Cucanatos of the world, who are always playing their same 75 week in, week out. Maybe there's a card or two different, but they show a lot of expertise and they're able to get out of a lot of spots that the average player would not be able to do.
Yeah. I mean, Greg Smith certainly did that when we watched him in that second game a little bit earlier. My goodness. Not many people would have won that game here, as Craig Bargo looks like he's taking a mulligan here. Looks like he may or may not be happy with his hand right now, as Cucanato is waiting patiently here, ready to reanimate something large. As far as his reanimation spells are concerned, 3 Exhumes, an Animate Dead, 4 copies of Reanimate, and then 2 Show and Tells. Delver to begin for Bargo. Off of Volcanic Island as round 7 is underway here. Cucanato gonna play himself an Underground Sea. He's also got a Lotus Petal. He prefers this much quicker version.
Yeah, and the Lotus Petals are so nice at fighting through the Dazes and Spell Pierce of the world too, which is the most common form of disruption you're gonna play against game 1 besides Deathrite Shaman.
You saw Bargo take a look at him too. I'm afraid I've got some bad news, Craig.
Yeah.
He's gonna put a Gristlebrand down there. And we'll see what the follow-up's going to be if he actually does have a Reanimate here to bring that back right away. Because I know Cucanato has a Force of Will and I believe a blue card as well. So
this could be a fast one.
Yeah, doesn't waste time. And it actually has 2 Force of Wills. So does he have a Reanimate too? Are we pedal to the metal?
Oh
boy. Oh boy.
Wow.
Oh no.
Oh, you play a 1/1 that turns into a 3/2. That's pretty neat. That's a really good deal for 1 mana. We'll see if Craig's able to fight over this. He has a Spell Pierce in hand.
I see a couple Delvers over there. I see a Spell Pierce, and I see a Gristlebrand coming into play. Well then, has it been this easy for Robert all day?
I don't know. This is as easy as it may be tied for as easy as it gets. It can't get any easier.
Delver is going to flip here, revealing Ataxia Probe. Patrick, look at your favorite card. He can get some information.
That's pretty valuable right now.
Yeah.
Yep. See what's going on.
Take a look at the Gristlebrand on the table. My goodness.
Now, keep in mind that he's not going to be working with complete information here because Robert's going to draw 7 and then potentially 7 more cards. So the texture of his hand's going to be changing a little bit.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It is good to know for the time being that he's playing against 2 Force of Wills and 2 Exhumes.
Yes. Take that information with them perhaps to the next game.
Yeah.
As there's no way for Barco to get this Gristlebrand off of the table. He will cast the Ponder. He's going to battle on.
What I really like about Legacy at times is the asymmetrical terms of engagement. Sometimes you think the game is going to be about A, and then the game's really about B. Greg had to be pretty happy with this mulligan to 6. You know, there's a Delver and a land and a Cantrip and a Pierce. Like, how bad could this go?
Yeah. Cucanato's hand was absolutely absurd, too. Because even if he somehow loses the war of Reanimate, it's like, all right, if I draw a land, you're dead. Because I have 2 Exhumes in my hand. What a completely busted hand.
Yeah, even if he's not able to, turn 1 Reanimate with Force of Will backup.
Yeah. His hand was just borderline perfect. See Bargo going to shuffle off of the Ponder here. And the only thing for Cucanato in this situation is Gristlebrand simply acts as a 7/7 lifelinker here. It doesn't have to actually draw any cards.
Are there any Vapor Snags hanging out in Craig's list here? Occasionally there's something along those lines. Does not appear so.
Perhaps a Rapid Hybridization, a Pongify. I'm thinking of some very obscure cards to get the job done with now.
A Fire Ice even would be.
Oh boy.
He does have a main deck Fire and Ice.
Slow that down for a turn.
Yeah.
Perhaps shoot Gristlebrand with a Forked Bolt.
Yeah, let him know.
Yeah.
let him know what's up.
Yeah. Cucanato gonna activate here. Gonna draw some cards.
This is in response to the fetch land, so this activation doesn't get stifled potentially.
Yeah. So now the fetch land is gonna resolve. See what Bargo is gonna go search up. A tropical island. Gamely battling on is Craig. There's a chance, of course, that his opponent could make mistakes. So.
Now that Robert's at 5, I guess Fire Ice has kind of lost its utility at this point because it doesn't have nearly enough mana, but...
Lost a little bit of its charm. Delver. That's in there. Cucanato gonna untap. He's gonna take a draw here. Looks like a careful study is what he found. And Gristlebrand, that's where you belong, right in the red zone. Bargo gonna go down to 10. Cucanato up to 12.
And Craig has a Bolt in hand, and if the Delver flips, I feel like he's going to be a little short, but he might be able to make this a semi-competitive game. The Force of Will is obviously a big problem through all this as well, so we shall see momentarily.
And if another creature gets into play, too. Looks like a Grave Titan is going to be discarded among other things here. Along with another copy of Gristlebrand. And Robert doesn't have to do anything too crazy here.
Speaks a lot to the power level of Grave Titan. That this was not that long ago a standard legal card, and it's a 6 mana creature that's worthy of a Reanimate spell. It'll slot in a Reanimator deck potentially.
I mean, super good card. We're going to cast a Reanimate here again. We're going to cast another Careful Study, okay.
Yeah, I can't imagine Robert's going to go down to 6 here, facing down 2 Delvers to get back a Grave Titan that can't block.
Discarding a Thought Seize and an Exhume before, I believe, passing the turn back. He's going to do some discarding, obviously. See what he wants to keep.
And I think Robert's probably just going to try to win the game with this Gristlebrand. In any event, I don't think he's planning on paying any more life.
Yeah.
If he has an opportunity to Exhume something, maybe you'll see that, but...
Delver trigger. It is not flipping. Misty Rainforest added to the grip. See a Lightning Bolt hanging out over there, a couple other cards. Nothing too crazy for Bargo. It's just going to come across for 4. Cucanato's going to go down to 8.
There's a second Bolt, but right now Robert's outpacing this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Gaining 7 and taking 6.
That's the kind of thing that it takes if you're Bargo to get back in this one. Bargo's going to take a look at Cucanato's graveyard really quickly here.
I mean, at this point, if he does find the Fire Ice, that's a real draw.
Ignoring that Force of Will that's in
Correct.
Cucanato's hand, yes, that would I would agree that would be a very, very live draw to get him actually out of this situation that he's in.
I mean, Craig is making a real effort at this.
I
There's
gotta agree.
probably too many Force of Wills at this point for him to really push through this, but
And his chance to win is very small, but I mean, definitely giving it an effort. So Bolt Spell Pierce to the grip here for Bargo. Gonna pass it over back to Cucanato, who's gonna draw. I'm gonna play a Swamp for the turn. This is an Entomb. I'd be going for Elesh Norn here.
yeah.
he can win the fight over the counterspell too, which is very, very important. And there is the 4/7 Praetor.
This is a combo with Griselbrand as it turns it into a 9/9 lifelinker.
Yes.
It's all the little synergies in Legacy.
Yeah, that's really what makes it such a great format. Let's ignore the fact that those Delver secrets are going to go to the graveyard probably in just a moment.
Yeah, Craig, ignoring that Craig is permanently locked and can't cast anything and maybe actually just be dead this turn. It is a nice little synergy.
Cast a Spell Pierce here. I believe this is worth fighting over. Force of Will removing a Brainstorm. Cucanato going to go down to 7. In comes Elesh. Away go the Delvers. Griselbrand's a little bit more upset. And it'll be attacked for 9 this go around instead of 7. Cucanato going to gain some life, and Craig Bargo says, don't worry about it.
I've had enough.
Reanimator wins game number 1 here in round 7 over Rug Delvers. We turn our attention to the sideboards. You've got Mr. Craig Bargos in front of you. What can he do?
Well, he has some soft permission in the sideboard, which is very nice here. He's got a Flusterstorm, 2 additional copies of Spell Pierce, a Red Elemental Blast. He has a Vendilion Click, 2 Lavamancers, 2 Surgical Extractions, a Crow's Hand Grip, an Ancient Grudge, 2 Rob Tumbles, a Dismember, and a Sulfur Elemental. So the 2 Surgical Extractions, of course, excellent here. Very efficient at fighting over reanimation spells. And the additional soft counters, the Flusterstorm, the 2 Spell Pierces, the Red Elemental Blast as well. Even though Robert primarily goes off through black spells, he still has Brainstorm, Ponder, Careful Study, Force of Will, and so forth. So I think you're going to see the Red Blast coming in as well.
Other side of things, Cucanato in a what feels like a pretty good matchup. Not great, but I mean, it's also not going to go as well as it did that game, but it's probably a pretty favorable matchup for him. 2 copies of Show and Tell, 2 City of Traders, 2 Jace the Mind Sculptor, an Ashen Rider, a Spell Pierce, 2 Duress, 3 Pithy Needles, and 2 copies of Massacre. Really, really good against Death and Taxes, of course. I actually just like the 2 additional Show and Tells and 2 City of Traders to help facilitate that. I don't really think he needs too much more. You can make an argument for Duress. He's already got Thoughtseize, however, in his main deck. And then Ashen Rider I don't think is really necessary in this matchup, though you could argue it's a little bit better than Grave Titan, I suppose.
Yeah, Grave Titan is not great at blocking Delver Secrets, which is one of the bigger problems that Robert has in the matchup. Although Grave Titan is excellent against the Mongoose and against Tarmogoyf, so it's not impossible there's spots for that card to be good.
So that's really about it. I don't think too much has to change here if you're Cucanato. I think that this is just a spot where the Show and Tell package comes in, and your deck just becomes very redundant.
Yep.
That's pretty much it.
And the extra 2-mana lands are helpful trying to fight through Pierces and Dazes and so forth.
This is a strategy we have been seeing Reanimate employ for some time now. They already start 2 Show and Tells, they bring in 2 more, they bring in City of Traders to help, and they just kind of go from there.
And I'm assuming you have no interest in Jace the Mind Sculptor here?
Nah, too slow.
Yeah.
Not really that kind of matchup. I'd actually be interested to ask Robert where he does like Jace the Mind Sculptor from the sideboard. Obviously, Jace is an incredibly powerful card, but I don't know if it plays a specific role for one matchup to help fix something.
I think it's just a stabilizing thing to do against some attrition-oriented decks. You can also just win the game outright with Jace in some spots too. So yeah. I think when you're playing against decks that are going to be bringing in, like a lot of Thoughtseizes or maybe overloading on Graveyard Hate, it's pretty good to have Jace.
Tough to make an argument against Jace.
Yeah.
I will say that. It is just that powerful of a card.
And it makes a lot of sense for a lot of the combo decks in Legacy, if they have the opportunity to do so, to try to sideboard into something of a more normal game plan, because sometimes you're playing against opponents who will not let you function on your primary axis.
This is true.
So you can still win games with Duresses, Thoughtseizes, Force of Wills, and Jace. You don't even need to necessarily reanimate.
Yeah. This version of Reanimator much worse against the Graveyard Hate-esque cards, just because this one's much more pedal to the metal.
Yeah, the Show and Tell is his way of getting around this sort of stuff. He's not trying to blow up Grafdigger's cages or fight through that kind of stuff.
Has no interest in playing a longer or fair game.
Which I like. I like that sort of approach. Game 1, you're just going to win a lot of games, and then you're going to put them to the test. Games 2 and 3 to have their Graveyard Hate and have something that interacts with Show and Tell. And that seems to me a much better plan than trying to bring in spot removal spells to kill Deathrite Shaman or whatever. Except that some games your graveyard is not going to be a functional tool and have Show and Tell for those games. And then in some games your opponent will have Sideboard Hate, but they won't necessarily draw it, and you can still just do your thing like you saw in the first game.
Yeah. Robert Cucanato, again, always playing this deck and always doing well with it. elimination rounds in Detroit, I believe.
I think he may have fell a little short. I'm not positive.
Wouldn't be surprised if he made. I know, again, he made it in Cleveland last time I saw him when we were there, so see how he did there in Detroit. And I mean, he's already on a beautiful pace here this weekend, so.
At the minimum, he made a very deep run.
Yeah. Seems to always do that when he's playing Reanimator.
It's a very powerful deck, and a lot of people have way less sideboard slots devoted to graveyard strategies than they used to because of Deathrite Shaman. Because you have a game 1 card that does some work, and you assume the Deathrite Shaman decks are going to take care of the decks like Reanimator and Dredge, but that isn't necessarily the case. Robert Straw was so fast that game that if his opponent had turn 1, imagine Robert played against turn 1, his opponent went turn 1 Deathrite Shaman with Force of Will backup, that would not have been enough that game.
That's true, which is absurd.
So
Yeah.
not only do they have to have it, but sometimes they can have it and it's just still not enough.
Yeah. It really does speak to the power of this deck. And this deck has always felt like, to me, it's just a little bit underplayed. Because just what it does is just so absurd.
I agree. I think a lot of people have the fear of Deathrite Shaman, quite honestly. Because it does win. It is good against this deck a good percentage of the time.
Yeah.
And it's very prevalent.
It is very good against this deck, too. Let's not kid ourselves.
You can overpower it or show and tell through it, but it is problematic.
So as both players are going to finish shuffling up here. If you are just joining us, we of course do appreciate it. Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, Star City Games Open Series here in Cincinnati, Ohio. Next weekend, we head to Knoxville. Should be fun.
Yes.
I even think Evan Irwin's coming out and doing battle there.
Yeah, I asked him if he was coming because one of Tennessee's favorite sons.
Yeah.
And yes, he is making the trip.
I'm going to sleeve up a few spells and do battle. One of the 4 times a year he probably gets to do that.
Yep.
But it should be fun to see him out there, everybody else competing. We know that Joe Lissette's going to be there. Talk to him a little bit today. He's still feeling a little under the weather, but he knows he's got to grind these points out here because he really, really wants to make a real run for the Players' Championship here in Season 2. I know he's going to be there next weekend. Wouldn't be surprised to see Chris Van Meter there, of course. Knoxville, not too far away from Roanoke.
Yep.
And a whole host of other players. So if you're in the area, look forward to seeing you guys next weekend out there.
And I've never been to Knoxville, so
Me
I'm pretty
either.
excited.
Me either.
I've been in Nashville for a Grand Prix. And I drove through Eastern Tennessee once on my way to the Appalachian Trail, and that's about it.
I have been to Memphis for Worlds
Right.
back in, I think it was 2008.
I think Memphis is on the western side of the state, if I'm not mistaken.
It was a long drive from college.
Yeah.
It was 11 hours of sleeping for me. It's a really long time to sleep in a car.
Yeah.
Memphis and Nashville, I guess, are on the complete other sides. Memphis and Knoxville. So, I'm looking forward to it, though.
Yeah, I haven't
I
been.
am.
I've enjoyed my time out in Tennessee, so.
Enjoyed my time here, too. Skyline Chili. Yes, sir.
This show's been a hit and run job for me. I got in late on Friday, so.
Yeah, I know.
The Fairfield Inn Suites has been very nice. That's all I can really comment on about
I do.
today.
I do generally enjoy that people, as far as Skyline Chili is concerned, it's one side or the other. People think it's amazing and the best thing ever, or the worst thing to ever grace the planet. As here's a Delver of Secrets off a tropical island. I think it's a tasty treat. Let's see if Robert has a fast start again. Just gonna discard. Okay.
This could either be a really fast or a really slow start.
Yeah. Here's a daze.
This is the backdoor reanimate strategy of just put it in the graveyard.
Take a few turns off. Bargo having some real difficulties getting that Delver out. There we go.
The turn 1 discard to hand size, opponent untaps and reveals daze is pretty rough.
Probably not the best feeling in the world. Opponent also has Stifle, Forceful, and Flusterstorm in hand.
If this is not enough to keep Robert off of reanimating something, then you just tip your hat to the man and say, you got it.
And you go buy a copy of the deck. That's what you do. All right, cast this. I think what his hand is just a bunch of reanimate effects, probably. He's just reanimating right now. You probably have a counter. He's reanimating in the face of a daze that he knows is there. Oh, we're going to have a little battle. Forcible that. Removing show and tell. I like it. You better have a Force of Will.
And he does.
Trying to figure out what card to remove.
Is Daze and Force of Will against an opponent with 0 mana not enough?
Force back. Can you imagine if Robert has another force? Well, okay, I was going to say that would be completely absurd.
Yeah. But now Craig's in a really good spot here. He gets to untap with Flusterstorm.
You got to like his situation for sure. Going to play a Trop attack here for 4. Cucanato's going to go down to 12. He's going to draw a card for the turn. There's a polluted Delta. Ask Bargo how many cards in his hand. Bargo says, I have 4. Flusterstorm is the only important one. Here we go again. A Duress.
Oh, boy. I mean, you got to Flusterstorm it, you know.
You don't want him to see that you have nothing. I think that's the important part here. Yeah, I think you have to Flusterstorm, yeah. All right, that's countered. Uh-oh.
Oh, boy.
Cucanato's going to go down to 11. He is very quickly searching through his deck. I wonder what he's looking for. All right, it's an island.
Whew.
You can feel a little safer. It's horrifying playing against Reanimator. He's actually just searching for this and passing the turn so he doesn't get stifled. Okay.
Yeah.
If you're Craig Bargo, you probably need one more piece of permission to get the job done. A Spell Pierce, a Daze, something. You probably just need one more.
And if you're Craig, you're thinking, my hand can't get much better than this.
Yeah.
This is about the ceiling. And it still may not be enough depending on the quality of Robert's hand. Knocks on the top of his deck.
Yeah. Attack for 4, going to put Cucanato down to 7. There's a Wasteland. That's a Tarmogoyf.
Now, what's significant about getting Robert's life total low here is that Reanimate stops being a way that he can go off.
Yeah,
the
that's
life
off now.
The life payment's too high. So now we're looking at a spot where maybe he needs Exhume or something like that to be able to go off.
Cucanato going to untap. He's going to take a draw. What's he find? This is exactly what she mentioned. It's an Exhume. All he can do is shrug his shoulders. Yep. Elesh Norn's going to come in. Bye-bye Delver. Bye-bye Mongoose. And now you've got Tarmogoyf as a 2-3.
Elesh Norn can start attacking soon, in fact.
Yeah, it has Vigilance. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
That's fun.
So...
Technically it's a 4-5, so you probably have to leave it at that.
So yeah, that Tarmogoyf die reflects the size of it based on its text box, but of course that's not accurate now in play because Elesh Norn is shrinking it.
Time to go brainstorming. You see a Delver, that's a dead card. Another Delver, that's a dead card in a Daze. The one thing here that's really telling, you know, Cucanato obviously getting Elesh Norn in play, so that's definitely a big point in his favor, but just the game plan of discard right now. Like, just, he knew exactly what he wanted to do. I have Elesh Norn, I have some reanimation spells, let's go. Reanimate right into a Daze.
Yep.
I don't care. I got a counter spell, let's battle. And I think that's how you have to play this deck. Instead of, like, you know, bobbing and weaving and trying to assemble mana around Spell Pierce and Daze, forget that. Right in your face.
I asked Robert, you know, he said something to me that really stuck with me after he was talking about the match that we had on camera. And he said, you can only beat the cards that they put on the table. You know, that I can only play around the cards they put on the table. He's definitely has this attitude of, I'm just going to push and push and push. If they have everything, then that's fine. But I'm going to make them have everything.
And I genuinely like that approach when you're playing this deck of just, I'm not messing around, let's go. You see Bargo trying to figure out what 2 cards to put back. I've always been a fan of making my opponent have it anyway. A lot of the time when I play Magic, and I'm not saying that's right all the time, it's just a style that I prefer.
Yeah, and it's especially so when you're talking about a format like Legacy, where if your opponent gets to untap, it might mean that now they have access to 2 more counter spells because the counter spells are so cheap. Or it might allow them the brainstorm that they need to find the last piece of permission or whatever. Time is rarely on the side of the person trying to go off here because the games can end so quickly. More often than not, you're better served just going for it.
Careful study time. That's good to go. Hit 1 and 2. See what Mr. Cucanato is going to discard here. Didn't waste any time casting that careful study, so presumably it's something he's more than happy to discard. You see there's a Reanimate in his hand. Probably not going to ever get to play that one now.
Yeah, with his life total being what it is, I would be surprised.
There goes Exhume. There goes Polluted Delta. Careful Study goes in the graveyard. In we go. Bargo's going to go down to 15. Elesh Norn getting the work done. There's a Lotus Petal. This is a Reanimate. He's going for somebody else's graveyard. Yeah, this is one of my favorite parts about Reanimate. A lot of people don't know that with this card, is that you can just go after somebody else's bin, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, he's at threshold, so.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'll take a Delver out in mine.
Okay.
That's a 3/3. He does go down to 6, so he opens himself up to running lightning bolts, but at the same time, he wants to close this one out pretty quickly, I think.
And Craig doesn't even have red mana yet, so.
That Ponder can certainly help.
Robert doesn't necessarily know that this Elesh Norn is for sure safe for the entire game.
Agreed.
As part of the issue here. So there is some risk, but there's risks playing it the other way as well. It feels like Craig just needs to start cantripping here. Most of his decks just shut off here, so. Also keep in mind, it's not 100% that Craig would even have left in Lightning Bolt. If he's bringing in all these counter spells, he might just want to keep his cantrips and counters and creatures.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I would be surprised if all four were in his deck, quite honestly.
Yeah, I think I would be inclined to agree with you. At the same time, though, it's very rare, I think, for Rug Delver players to board out their lightning bolts, just because you do get yourself in that situation a lot of the time where it takes one lightning bolt to get the job done, or, you know, running bolts to get yourself out of trouble.
Yeah, but, you know, he's just got a lot of cards he can bring in here. There's 6 powerful cards for him to sideboard in, and where's the space coming from? I mean, you're not cutting your soft permission. You shouldn't be cutting your cantrips.
Oh, I mean, I don't think you're wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just from what I have seen when people play this deck, it's like there's a lot of times where I think that, they probably just board out like some number of lightning bolts, or maybe they should board out their lightning bolts for the things that you just mentioned, and then, you know, they end up, you know, running lightning bolts to get the job done, where maybe the opponent or even me or you in the booth were just like, well, I didn't think that was something that was actually possible.
Yep. Maybe you're supposed to just leave all 4 of them because you're playing against a deck with Reanimate, so you just never know when that's going to be.
I have Thoughtseize too.
Yeah, the way the game plays out.
See, Bargo's going to shuffle off this Ponder.
So needs to find red mana and bolts, and needs to find them fast.
Yeah. Let's see what step 1 is. Drew that card pretty quick. I don't think it was either one.
I think it was a Tarn.
Okay, yeah. Step 1.
Yep.
Tarmogoyf is going to have to be a roadblock here.
Still just instant sorcery, creature land in the graveyards.
Just going to pass the turn back now. Delver checking, flipping.
Nice.
5/4 flyer now. Cucanato having the same trouble that Bargo is getting it out of his sleeve. Those things are tightly wound in there.
Mm-hmm.
This Delver does not want to flip. No.
It appears to be perfect fit, which I could totally respect it because legacy cards are so expensive. But if I was the type of person inclined to perfect fit, I just wouldn't play with Delver. Or I would have checklist cards in my deck. There's no way I would go through this every single time.
Sure. It's a nightmare. In comes Delver and the vigilant Elesh Norn.
It's a 9 spot. Delver's lethal now.
Yep. The combat math is not in Bargo's favor. He's going to draw a card. It looks like running lightning bolts is no longer an out here. Mystery cards of Force of Will. That's not going to do it. You see 4 stays in Delver's the grip. And I think Bargo's going to come to the same realization that we are, that he is done for. Robert Cucanato with Reanimator defeats Craig Bargo 2-0, 7-0. And it looks like he's going to be heading to the elimination rounds, my friends.
Very impressive. I mean, that